to substitute 2HB338 LC 371558S. This is very special to me. I appreciate the governor asking me to carry this, but he knows how long and hard Chairman Stevens and I have been working on this. I told the chairman I dusted off our 2006 report, the final report of the House Study Committee on Funding for the Arts, which I chaired, and my speech that I gave to this committee, which passed out our bill unanimously, what we realized was just how critical the arts are to our economy, to education, to communities, and so forth. And there was a proposal that was to raise money that was met with a good bit of opposition by the arts community. So we started looking at other ways to fund the arts. And we had two major hearings, one in Savannah and one here in Atlanta. And when I could get Chairman Tom Rice to agree completely with Representative Kathy Ash, I knew we were on the right track. So we had recommended a Georgia Arts Alliance, very similar to the Research Alliance. Governor Perdue, when we did finally pass it, did not appoint members. He wanted to work on it more. When Governor Deal came in, met with him, and he said, why don't we take the best of both what was proposed and what we have and move forward. And the first thing was to move the arts to economic development and tourism. They're that important. So that was done in 2011. Amy Carter, Representative Carter, the governor's floor leader, did that. But this, I think, makes the changes that, Chairman, you and I have recommended for years. It will make the commission much more efficient and make it more valuable to Georgia citizens. I have Kathy Williams from the commission. I have Elmer Stansel from Economic Development and Tourism. And with your permission, I'd like for them to just endorse this.
Absolutely.
Or I can read this whole speech.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Thank you, Elmer. And you can join her, too, if you will, at the podium. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you. I am currently serving as chair of the board, the advisory board of Georgia Council for the Arts. I was appointed in 2004 by Governor Perdue, made chairman by Governor Perdue in 2005, and I have continued to serve. I'd like to just tell you that we, as a practicing, meeting, functioning board, believe that this is a great change. When I was appointed in 2004, there were vacancies. We had an old structure of 2 representatives from each congressional district and 4 at large. If that were so now, we would have 30 members. We have 15. We have never had, in my experience, a full board. Now, it doesn't mean we don't do good things. It just means that it's hard to get capable, committed volunteers to stay with the board. So to reduce the number to 9 seems like a great change. We support the 2 ex officio members from the legislature. That's a great idea. We feel an urgency about it now, like Representative Wilkinson said. Now that we're in economic development, this is the time to help us be more a part of economic development and figure out how we fit in and how we can continue to support the arts community. So all these changes we fully endorse. If you have any questions, I have much information here from Karen Patey, our current director. Anything I can do to answer that.
Representative Merritt.
Thank you. Thank you for it. And just to clarify,
Yes.
because it says on line 51 that it's going to be appointed 9 members. Then on line 53 says the governor shall appoint 2 ex officio. So from those 9s, those two ex officio will be included on those, or will make 11.
Correct.
9 plus
Correct.
2,
To
so
equal-
11.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Other members of committee? Mr. Stanson? Thank you, Kathy.
I'll just echo Kathy's remarks, and this is a great change for the council and just incorporates the council coming to the Department of Economic Development. We're very, very happy with this legislation.
Questions of committee? Here are no questions. I'll entertain a motion on the bill.
Do pass.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of passing the bill by substitute will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The bill moves to the Rules Committee. Thank you, Chairman Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, at long last.
At long last.
We've been, like I said, Chairman, I've been working on this for 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, committee. For the past 6, possibly 7 years, we've been working on a product to try to get tourism destination in the state of Georgia, something unique and something that would put us on a par with some of our surrounding states, specifically Florida, that would really give us a tool of economic development specifically targeted for tourism. And today I bring you House Bill 318. It is the governor's bill. And I believe we finally have the ability to have the rules and regs promulgated that will fit the bill that will allow us for this tourism destination product. As you may remember, just to refresh your memory, 2 years ago we passed the bill, the Tourism Development Act. What it did was it set a floor for products for construction that would be specifically for tourism. The floor originally was $100 million. We dropped the floor to $1 million to make sure that areas in South Georgia that were just as important to tourism as Atlanta, maybe a $100 million project in Atlanta. And rather than go through the tier system, which has its problems for tourism development, we decided to drop the floor and allow the rules to be promulgated both between the Department of Revenue, Department of Community Affairs, and the Department of Economic Development. And the final say, as you might remember, comes from the governor. There are 5 changes in this particular bill, and I'll go over each one of them and then open for questions. The first one is it does maintain the $1 million threshold, and there is an introduction of a non-refundable application fee. That's to cover our costs whenever we're going through to see if you're going to fit the criteria to have a tourism destination product. It clarifies that only one company per project is allowed. That is to make sure that we don't have stacking tax exemptions and tax rates. So if you're going to get this particular product, only one company is going to be eligible for that. And it's one company per project. It defines the baseline for an incremental sales tax. And I'll just read you this. It clarifies and defines the baseline for sales tax collected during the preceding year, in which the 12-month period immediately preceding the commencement of the construction or the expansion of the project, retaining the incremental sales tax approach, is consistent with the spirit and the design of the Act. Ladies and gentlemen, unlike other tax credits or tax breaks, this is a sales tax exemption. Essentially, we're giving 25% of the exemption back to the companies only after they build the product and only after the turnstiles start going. As you may remember, again, we based this off the Kentucky law when they were trying to promote their horse racing industry. The problem we had in the bill that we passed 2 years ago was a constitutional problem, and it was that we had not only the 4-cent sales tax that was exposed to the state, but we also had the local sales tax exposed, and that was a problem. So we've gotten language in here that fixes that, and it removes the local option sales tax piece from the incentives package and avoids that thorny constitutional problem that we had. But it does say that you've got to have skin in the game, and that comes along with the application, so that we, the state of Georgia, are not the only participant in creating this economic development opportunity, and that the local governments, as a trigger, also have to be involved either with tax abatements, land donations, and that sort of thing. It's heavily weighted on that, and again, that's the trigger that actually makes this bill work. It and the fifth thing it does, it omits the additional 10-year calculation called for in the Act. Essentially, the way the mechanism is going to work is a person will apply for let's just say it's a Disney World type attraction, something very large, and within that attraction, once they invest their own private money into this destination product. Once the turnstiles start, they get a 2.5% sales tax recoupment per year for 10 years. And essentially, it's that 10-year look-back period, or the 10-year window, is where they can recoup about 25% of the total cost of their project. It is a very, very big opportunity for tourism destination. And since we passed the bill 2 years ago, we're not asking anything new with a fiscal note that's required, so there's no economic impact whatsoever. And Mr. Chairman, do we have the revised bills on their desk? Yes, okay. They were printing those as we were going through those, and I'll just open for any questions. And please ask a lot. Representatives.
Since you insisted, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Basically, what we're so we can get an understanding of what is happening here. If someone comes in and invests $100 million, they get an opportunity to recoup as much as $25 million of that back through sales tax exemptions.
Exactly.
Of 2.5%
of the proceeds of the ticket sales per year for 10 years.
The ticket sales $100.
Right.
And $100 if you're in Savannah, 7%, isn't it?
Yes.
So of that 7%, they will get 3% will be exempted because
yes.
1% is the most tax. 1% is the e-splosh, and 1% is the
SPLOST.
Is regular splosh.
We have lost the fifth penny, the sixth penny is SPLOST, and the seventh penny is the educational local option sales tax.
Right, so those are the 3 pennies.
And those would be exempted. However, the local governments are going to have skin in the game as required whenever they make their application, so that we're not the only ones. That 4 cent would not be the only one that's taking the hit.
And the weight, and how do they get skin in the game?
They get skin in the game either by property tax abatements, or they get skin in the game by property donations. There's nothing that would prevent the taxing authority through their local development authority from donating property as part of this investment, just as you would with any other brick and mortar investment.
And if they don't get skin in the game,
they can't play. And let me reiterate one more thing as a result of that question. If you choose to use this particular sales tax exemption for tourism destination, no other exemptions statewide that are state exemptions, whether it's credits, whether it's sales tax, whether it's, I can't imagine any of the other taxes that are out there, none of the other taxes will be, can be applied for on that particular project.
One final, so the skin in the game, you mentioned property tax abatement. If they come in and say, well, we're going to abate your property taxes 50% for 2 years, would that be considered skin in the game? That's in the application process, and that might, if they're only going to do a 2-year property tax abatement instead of a 10-year that we're exposed to, I would think that might not be a favorable consideration. But then again, that's up to the Department of Economic Development, Community Affairs, and Department of Revenue to see if that fits the game. And for 2 years, a large property tax abatement may fit. But again, it's within the rules and regs. Okay.
Good question.
Mr. Chairman, all costs associated with such application analysis should be paid for by the approved company. Is that on a scale, or is that actually a reflection, like on the actual cost, depending on the scope of the project, of what it costs to do an analysis, or is that a set?
No, the entire cost of the project, everything included in the project, from the initial work on the project, whether it's architect fees, any of that stuff that's associated with the project is subject to that recoupment.
Okay, so that's the actual cost that incurred. Okay, thank you.
And of course, that's required whenever you're doing your pro forma, as you might imagine.
Mr. Chairman, probably not again this you have spoken this before, but is there a minimum development requirement?
Yes.
Okay.
It's $1 million, and of course that's subjective, of course, because we're leaving out the tier system and where you might, as you might get tax credits back. And based on the tier system, we want to leave that totally out of the conversation. That's on tax credits. This strictly is $1 million floor. There are some South Georgia crafts, since we're talking in the arts, considerations that future investments are already being considered there. And there are those who felt like they ought to be considered equally to $100 million in Atlanta, Georgia.
Any other questions? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak? Okay. Chair is ready to entertain a motion. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we adjourn, former Commissioner Randy Cardoso is here from Economic Development, and I got Mr. Gross here with him. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take the chairman's prerogative and have you to just spend just a moment, if you will, if you'll join us up here at the podium and give us about a 5-minute brief on some economic development down on the coast.
Well, I appreciate it. My name is Bill Gross. I'm from Camden County. That's down in the very corner of St. Mary's, Kingsland. And we're very fortunate to have Kings Bay Nuclear Sub Base. But and that's 70% of our jobs in Camden County are directly related to that. So we're trying with economic development incentives get a little diversification. Camden is in a unique spot in that we are probably the only place in the state of Georgia that's within 1 hour's drive of 1.25 million people, other than Metro Atlanta, and most of which are Jacksonville, Florida. We're subject to Jacksonville's media, TV, newspaper, radio, and so it's a huge siphon from the state of Georgia. A couple things the reason I think this bill is an important bill is the I-95 corridor, as many of y'all know, is the busiest interstate in the nation. It goes through more states than any interstate in the nation, which is 15. It has 3 times the economic base of the average interstate in the nation. And it's only 112 miles through Georgia. I think Georgia misses huge opportunity to get some of the income that many other states enjoy as they pass through. We think that this bill will give us the ability to have a major project down on the coast that can help change, be a catalyst event, help change the outflow of Georgia tax dollars into Florida and start the southern part of the state to really grow. I mean, I think the economic impact will be tremendous. Our analyst anticipates that a project such as this, that the state would receive about a 4-to-1 return over a 10, 20-year period, and it would be the catalyst event that could kickstart the diversification of our economy. So I appreciate your support. Any kind of questions from South Georgia?
Members of the committee? Thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
And thank you again, Mr. Cardoso, for being with us again. It's always good to have the experience of the department in years gone by. So thank you very much for coming by. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you next week on our trip to the Tyler Perry studio that you make sure that your name is on the list. If you're planning to go, the security there is probably heavier than Fort Knox, as you might imagine, and they're doing filmings as we go along. We'll leave directly from there. We'll meet here at 4 o'clock, right in front, and be here right at 4 o'clock so we can leave. And then we'll go from there to Screen Gems and then do the lunch over there. So is there any other thing for the committee? Then we are adjourned. That's all right. Susan.